Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to show you the amazing new Patina kit. I have this beautiful floral tile stencil, a mini slimline card base, and then a craft card panel to go over that. I have sprayed pixie spray on this stencil to make it stick. And I am using this fabulous turquoise pigment ink from the Patina kit to just directly ink through the stencil onto the card base. Now, even though I have a little bit of pixie spray on the back of this stencil, the pigment ink is just a tiny bit sticky, and so you might notice the stencil coming up just a little bit, and that's okay. Just you'll see me holding it in the areas that I'm not inking to sort of keep that in place. If it moves a little bit while you're inking, don't worry about it. It's easy enough to line up. This is a very precise stencil image that you can see the edges of really clearly. So I can actually take the whole stencil off and replace it, and it will be just fine. I just want to make sure that every bit of this is covered with ink. Then I have a coffee stirrer that I have cut at an angle. I've had this for probably 20 years since I took an embossing class where we precisely applied embossing powder using this method. And I love it because I didn't want to cover the entire thing with the embossing powder in the Patina kit. I just wanted little highlights here and there, because that's the thing about Patina, is it just sort of creeps into different little places if you're talking about tin or copper or other metals. And so I wanted to preserve a lot of that turquoise while highlighting some of the brass embossing powder. So that little angled coffee stirrer helps me precisely place that embossing powder, and I highly recommend it. Now, while you're embossing, it also dries the pigment ink, which is fantastic. And you can see how shiny this is and how the warm and cool colors play together, which I just love. So I'll be using this big Merry Christmas sentiment, and it has a layering portion and the word die. So I'll use some of this highlighter tape to tape this down. This is the most nerve-wracking part of card making for me because I'm not really good at judging whether or not things are straight. So once you sort of commit to this, it is what it is. So I committed to it. I'm also going to cut a few out of black because I'm going to be doing an Eclipse technique. So now I have cut this, and the most important thing is to keep all of the little pieces from each one of these letters, because I am going to be piecing those back in. So you'll actually need every little bit of what you cut out of the base layer. So I will set those aside, and you can see how cute it would be on white, just on my mat. But we are going to really do it up with the Eclipse, and so the background will be all the same. Okay, so now I have a few of the die cuts in black. And for these, you don't need the little pieces inside the letters and all of that. You really just need the words for stacking up. Here is my second die cut. So I will remove that from the die. And now we will go about just gluing these together. So like I said, I have a pre-cut and scored mini slimline card. I love getting my cardstock pre-cut and scored because I do not enjoy cutting paper. And mini slimline is one of my favorite formats. It is absolutely perfect for this die set. So step one is to take the panel that has just the open space that I cut the die cut out of there, because that is going to help me piece everything in. So I went ahead and put the precision glue on the back of that. And then I have the outline portion that the words fit into. So I will also glue that in because that is going to help me place the letters as well. And as you know, if you've done any die cut inlay or that type of thing, there's always a little bit of adjustment to be done. So the thinner pieces that I'm piecing back in, sometimes you can get them glued down just a little bit crooked and you have to do an adjustment, but you'll see it's easy as pie and it works out great. So I'm using the precision glue to make sure that every little piece of this has at least one little dot of glue on it. Sometimes those things that kind of stick in, like in between the letters, those can stick up a little bit. So you want to make sure you have glue on every single one of those. So I'll make sure that outline is all patted down. Make sure that is down to the cardstock, especially the little skinny bits. And then I will start assembling my Eclipse portion of the greeting. So to do that, I need to take all the little extra pieces out of both of these black pieces. And of course, I'll just be using the word portion. I will not be using the outline. When I do this, I always put the outline back into the pocket that I store my die in though, because if you want to mix and match colors on future die cuts, it's really helpful to have that outline already done. You might want to put a different color with a black outline, and I just find that saves me time. So I'm taking this word die cut and I'm putting glue all over the front of it. I like to use black in this situation because I feel like you can really sort of see that shadow when you're doing the Eclipse technique. And so I like to have that darker cardstock. And in this case, it's a nice neutral to go with this super colorful Patina word die cut. So I'll repeat this for the second layer. I think that 3 is fine. The Hero Arts black cardstock is really thick. And so it makes a great, great, great layered Eclipse Technique cardstock. So I will just get all the little fiddly bits out of there. This is much harder when you're filming it. I don't know why. It just is. Try it sometime. Film yourself trying to get the fiddly bits out of a die cut. And I promise you it'll be harder. So I'll go back in with the precision glue one more time. And make sure that you add it all over. I like this because it has a very fine tip, so I can get into these word dies, but you definitely don't want to skip any portion of this. That can get wiggly on you, especially when you're trying to piece it back into the opening that you've left yourself on the card base for the eclipsed triple stacked word die. So now I will put the little sandwich that I already made on top of this. Liquid glue is especially important for this technique because it gives you a minute to sort of adjust before you really commit. So you can see that dimension there. I also like to take a sanding block, especially with black cardstock. There's so much dye in black cardstock that sometimes it can fracture a little bit when you are die cutting. And so I like to just sand the back of the die cut just to get any little extra pieces of paper off so that it's a super clean cut. On a card that's this simple, you really want everything to be executed really well. So that's my goal here. Same thing, apply glue to absolutely every surface of the die cut that you can so that you can securely put it into that opening and not have anything pop out later on. This one should be pretty easy to fit in here. I like to do this before I put the negative space cuts in because you're poking the negative space cuts down onto the base of the card, and that's easy to do with a little piercing tool. So once that's in there, then I can start piecing these little bits back in. This is why you wanted to save them at the beginning. And this is my gem picker. It has a very fine little point on the other end for picking up rhinestones. And after I put the glue on the piece and set it down on the cardstock, then I can sort of poke it down into that opening with my gem picker. So that is actually at the layer of the card base. So it is below the stacked up die cuts, and it just looks so dimensional and beautiful. This particular die doesn't have very many extra parts. It's really pretty easy. So these little pieces and parts go together very, very well. So I'll poke those little guys down in there. And then I think I've lost at this point the center of the A because I think it's stuck to my die cutting plate. So I'm going to have to go grab that after I finish the other ones. When you're doing this type of die cut inlay, make sure that you get everything off of your die cutting plate, especially if you're doing a video. So when your die cutting plates get a little bit old and grungy and they get kind of scratched up on top, they can hang on to those little tiny pieces of paper. So I will go rescue that one after I'm done here, and I will put it in its place. Luckily, the two insides of the R are exactly the same, so it doesn't matter which one you put where. Actually, 3 R's. The 2 R's in Mary and the 1 R in Christmas are exactly the same. So you have 3 completely interchangeable little pieces that are easy to piece back in there. So there you go. That is your Eclipse technique with this gorgeous, gorgeous patina technique. Look at that shimmer and shine and the fun dimension on that word die. I just love it so much. So here's what this looks like finished. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching.